Hello and welcome to the Night Modeling Stream. I'm your streamer, Bryan Bentley. This is CG Spectrum. Go to cgspectrum.com/3D-modeling for all your 3D needs. We're going to be continuing work on the Kortex bot. We're rounding the bend, almost to the end. So I've got my rig set up here. So I'm liking where he's going right now. So I did a little bit of work between the streams to set up his rig. If you look at the stream I did last week, I kind of stepped away from this guy, did some shader theory, basically talking about like how color is data. That's one of the biggest things that we can talk that we can take away from last stream, is that color is data. Color is black and white data encoded into color. So red, green, blue, alpha, all 0 to 1 values. So this is how we build our textures. So on this stream, we're hopefully going to export all of our textures from our substance file and bring them in to Maya and build our shaders, much like the shaders that we have in Substance Painter. Now, some people may ask, well, the iRay in Substance Painter looks amazing. Why would you want to render anything else? It's because you can't do animation in Substance Painter, and it's much harder to pose things and try out a bunch of different types of lighting styles in Substance Painter. Also, Substance Painter, the lighting is 100% what we call IBL lighting. So it's all image-based lighting. So I can't have a rectangular light or a spotlight or a directional light or anything like that. So these are the kind of the basics of lighting and rendering. So lighting, rendering, shading, and texturing all kind of live together, and you can't really have one without having the other. So let's do just that. Yeah, okay, so let's go over to pop over to Substance here. All right, so I think there's one last thing I want to do to this, and because of the way that the Arnold shader works, how our Arnold material works. Now, and that has to do with my little glass dome here. So most of the other stuff of this is pretty solid. It's either plastic or, something else like that. It's plastics or metals or, glowing bits. Those are all fine. As soon as you as soon as you're trying to get light to move through an object, that adds a level of complexity that you have to deal with. So I'm going to control and click. Let's see here. Yeah, Control Alt right click will move you to the correct UDIM tile. So if I look here at my UDIM tile, and if I press C, so there's my mask, there's my base color, there's my highlight, there's my roughness, there's my metallic, and here's my opacity. Now, if we think about opacity, like what does that word mean? What does opaque mean? Opaque means like you can't see through it, okay? So right now, my opacity for this is very, very low. It's almost like completely black. Which makes sense because, I shouldn't be able to see. I shouldn't be able, this should not be opaque. It should be the opposite opaque, which is transparent. Now, the shading model in Arnold and a lot of other shading models don't use opacity per se. They use translucency. They use something called either translucency or transparency or something like that, right? Or transmission as well is used. This is the opposite of opacity. Okay, so this is something we need to consider, right? So translucency is the opposite, or transparency is the opposite of opacity. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can do it in Substance. We can also do it in Maya. So that's something we need to we always need to deal with. So I think I'll do it in Maya just to show you more ways to do things. And like, I just kind of want to get back into Maya because I've been in Substance Painter for like the past, 2 or 3 weeks. Right. So that's just one thing that we need to to deal with overall. Okay, so let's go ahead and spit out these textures and start rebuilding this shader inside of Maya with an AI standard surface. So I'm gonna go to File. I'm gonna say Export Textures. So I have all my UDIMs here, and the first thing I want to do is set where my textures are going to go. So by default, it goes to Substance Painter Export, and I do not want to do that. I want to go to my project. So that's going to be in CG Spectrum. It'll be under, let's see, Projects, Stream, Palindrome Bot, and I want to put these in, let's see, this is my projects, and I want to put this in my source images. Cool. I usually export everything to source images because that's where Maya is going to be looking for its textures. Anyway, okay, so now we need to figure out what template we want. So we have this output template. I'm going to use the Arnold AI standard. So this gives me the mesh here, my mesh name. Let's expand this a little bit. There we go. So my mesh name, my texture set, which is going to be my UDIM tile. Or actually, no, it's my mesh name, my texture set, my base color, and then my UDIM tile. Okay, so I only have one texture set, I believe. So I'm going to get my base color, my metalness, my roughness, my normal, my height, and my emission. So I'm missing my opacity here, right? So I don't have that. So I need to make a new preset because it doesn't have opacity. I need the opacity here for the little dome here. So let's do that. Let's see. Yeah, so what I can do here is I can say, I believe this is make a copy. Yeah, so I can make a copy. So I'm going to rename this to AI standard, Arnold AI standard with opacity. Okay. So now instead of using this AI standard, I'm going to be using this AI standard with opacity. So what I need to do is I need to add another output map here. So I'm going to say, so I'm going to make, so my opacity is just one grayscale. So I'm just going to click here and say gray here. So it just gives me a gray. And I'm going to take my opacity here and I'm going to drag it. So we'll say gray channel. Okay, so much the same way as my metalness has just a gray channel, and my roughness has just a gray channel, and my height has just a gray channel, my opacity has the same one. So I'm just going to copy all this stuff here, and I'm going to change emissive to opacity. Cool, great. So now I can output my opacity for all my all these guys. Okay. One thing I may want to check and make sure is that all of my texture sets have opacity. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to say cancel, and so let's just go to texture set 1. So I'll go to texture set 1, and so I'm going to say, just give me an opacity here. And under my layers, just the very bottom, I'm going to take this base one here. And I'm going to make a new fill, and that's just going to be opacity only. So take this fill layer here, and I'm going to say, we'll call this opacity base. We'll just say OP base for short. And I only want opacity on this. And yep, I'm going to set that to 1. So if I go back to my channels here, So there's my opacity. So this one's all white. So if I remember correctly, 1024 is the only thing that I really need to edit my opacity on. All this stuff is going to be completely opaque. So what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll say, do my handy dandy copy instance across texture sets. And I'm going to say all, except for my source and my 1024. So I'll say OK. So my other texture sets, I just need to go in and add an opacity layer. So let's go. This one doesn't have an opacity layer, so I'm going to do texture sets, add opacity. So let's go back to opacity. So there's the arm, so that's all white. So we're just going to march through these guys and just do this real quick. For some reason, there is something that is eating my processing power right now. I'm not really sure what it is. Computer might be like updating in the background or something. So let's see. Let's make sure. Best metallic normal. Do I have opacity on this guy yet? Oh, I don't have opacity on this guy yet, so I need to add that in. So let's do color. Where is my opacity? Oh, there it is. Refrigerator blindness. Okay, so there's that opacity, and then we're just going to kind of march forward. Ah, that's what it was. My Unreal Engine decided to finally kick in. So there we go. A little preview for next time. Okay, so I think that's everything. So I should see now. Grab my opacity. Yep, everything is white except for those little bits up in the top there. Great, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and save this guy. And so now I'm going to go and say, let's go back to my material mode. All right, so we don't really have much change, but we just want to make sure that I have all my texture sets have the same number of outputs. And you don't actually have to do this, but I find it much easier to work this way. I'm gonna do file. Now I'm gonna go export textures. Still have that. There we go. Arnold standard with opacity. So I'm gonna say Arnold standard. Let's see, where is it? Arnold standard with opacity. So we leave everything else. Size. And let's do a, I believe I have these set at 2K. Let me double check and make sure. Yeah, we're at 2048 by 2048. I think that's good. I could go up to 4K. But that'll take a long time. So 2048, 2048. Dilation infinite. Want to be using, once again, yeah, standard with opacity. Gotta set this bad boy again. So I'm gonna go to CG Spectrum, projects, stream, palindrome bot, my projects, palindrome, and source images. All right, so I think let's do save these settings, and then I'll do an export. So I'm basically looking over here to make sure that everything's being exported properly, and that everything that I don't have any red warnings. So it looks like it's moving along pretty well. All right, all green, looks good. So let's go check out what we exported. So here, let's see, Spectrum, projects, stream, Palindrome bot, Maya projects, source images, and we should see, boom, look at all that. That's pretty amazing. That with one button click, we generated 63, well, 60, 62 items. And here's all our stuff. So if we look at, let's look at this in view. Let's do details. So Kortex for paint, VO2, 001, base color. Fantastic. Cool. So we have this 01 for everything, 02 for everything, 03 for everything, 04 for everything. Awesome sauce. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is now that's that done. So let's close this down, and I'm going to do file, and I'll do save, and then I'm going to shut this down. I'm also going to go ahead and shut down my Unreal Engine because that is eating a lot of memory. Yeah, go away, Jesus. All right. So now let's go and build our shader for this guy. So right now, I believe I have a just a AI standard surface on here. So I'm gonna pop open my Hypershade. Yeah, so I have this Kortex SG, and this is a standard surface. So this is my standard surface. I don't want to use this. I want to use the AI standard surface for Arnold. So let's go up here and change this to AI standard surface. And it looks a lot the same. We still have this weight and color, all this stuff. So the first thing I usually do is take my weight on my base and I put that up to 1, just so that looks correct. Now, the first thing I want to do, the same thing as I did last time, is I want to start testing lighting this guy. So the first thing I did is I did like a really simple lighting rig. So I did a 3-point lighting rig. Hello, Sengor GPS. Good to see you. Good to see you. From Bangladesh. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. So I'm going to set up a simple 3-point lighting setup. So if we remember, I had a key, a fill, and a rim, just so I can see this guy. So let's see. How do I want to do this? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, so I'm going to do my standard setup here. So I need my outliner here. I need, don't really need my Hypershade just yet. I do need my Arnold render view. So I think I'm going to plug this in. It'll let me down at the bottom here. There we go. So that's going to be my Arnold render view. I need a camera. So I'm going to say create camera. And I need to view from that camera. I'm going to say tear off copy, or actually just tear off. And this will go back to being my perspective. And then I'll plug this guy into this side over here. Actually, no, I don't even need this. I can pull this off. I don't need this because my own render view is basically that same view. Okay, so I just need to line up that view and then lock my camera. So camera, That's camera 1. Let's turn on my resolution gate so I can see. Yeah, that's okay. So I'm going to lock that down. Yep, and then I'm going to go back to my perspective view. So for my camera, what I like to do, I'll call this shot cam. And notice my shot cam is locked over here. The other thing, I like to turn on my frustum for my camera just so I can always see where it is. So let's do that. So frustum display frustum. So there's that. So it's looking good. And the other thing I'm going to do is, for the sake of speed, I'm going to come into my render settings and make sure I'm in Arnold, and I'm going to turn on my GPU render. System, GPU, that's good. Right, so for the sake of this guy, so I have my Arnold Geom and my Kortex. So my Kortex is my rig. I'm going to hide that for now. And then I have these guys. Don't need those anymore, so I can delete that. So this is my rig, this is my geometry, and then here's my shot cam. All right, so what I'm going to do is just going to put in one light just to make sure my render is working. So make that big and make it about exposure of 15. Set this to might have to reopen this guy because I'm not seeing my shot cam in there. Let's do update full scene, and there's my shot cam. Great. Let's render that, see if we get anything. Perfect. Nice, very nice. That's great. So my shot cam can probably push in a little bit. So I'm going to take this guy and unlock these. Have this push in. And hopefully I can get to posing this guy at some point today. All right, so let's go and lock this back. Okay, so now I have my basic setup for my lighting. If I can go ahead and that's fine. So I'm gonna stop. Okay, so now I'm going to set up my, so this is going to be my key light. Let's move this back. Let's hide these. My key light. And so when one of the things I like to do when I'm doing this is let's see, my key light should be over here. Move it. Setting that first light is always a challenge for me. It always takes me a long time to get it just right. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's looking good. Move it just a bit, make it a little bit warmer. Actually, I think what I'm doing, I'm going to leave it back here and take exposure up to like 16 or 20. 20 might be too much. 20 is way too much. 18. So that's good. So I'll stop my render, and I'm going to make my fill light. So the trick that I use to make my fill light is I group my key light, and I'm going to get this warning. It's fine. I'm going to duplicate this, and I just rotate it about 45 degrees. So this flattens out my lighting a whole bunch. So I'm going to take my exposure. I'm going to say maybe like 10. All right, so that's my fill. So I'm going to call this my fill light. I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And I'm going to rotate this around. So that's at the back. This is going to be my rim light. So I'm going to make this guy really, really bright. I'm going to rotate this around until I get kind of like an edge. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for right there. That's my rim light. So stop now. And I'm going to say file, increment, and save. Okay, so that's our base rendering. He's looking pretty good. I'm liking where this is going. Okay, so now's the fun part and the difficult part. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start to build up this shader piece by piece by piece. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on my let's see, what do I want to work on? First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on my normal map. So if I come back to my images here, I should bookmark this. But let's see, stream, Palindrome bot, my projects, source images, and let's look at our normal. So this is the first thing I'm gonna put together is my normal map. So I have normal 01 and all the way through normal 24. Okay, so I do my normal map first because my normal map and my roughness map pretty much give me most of my information. Now I have my height maps here as well, and I can use those. So the height map takes a little bit more work. We may get to this one this go round, and we may not. We'll see. All right. So let's go and pop open the Hypershade here. Get some water. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in, actually, don't want to do this first. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert all these guys, all these images to .tx files first. Now, .tx file is Arnold's internal image type, right? It's just like a JPEG or PNG or TIFF or whatever. It's just something that Arnold uses that is optimized for Arnold. It also does this thing called MIP mapping, which we can get into. But for the most part, like I said, when you're working with Arnold, you want to use all Arnold things. So I'm using the Arnold material, I'm using Arnold lights, and I also want to use Arnold textures. So I'm going to go to Arnold, and I'm going to go into Utilities, and I am going to say Make TX Files. and there's make TX files. So those will make the files that are already in your scene. So if we look down at the bottom here, it says convert/updates all textures to TX files for Arnold rendering. And then the TX manager says open the TX manager. So I want to open my TX manager. And that's opening my other screen here. And oh my word. This is coming in terribly. Oh, that is disappointing. Let's see if it works. Looks better on my other screen. Oh, this is really bad. Shame on you, Maya. Shame. Okay, so my TX manager is all crumpled up like somebody grabbed its face and went, So I'll just use the update TX once I've built everything. So this is, using the update TX is less efficient. It takes a little bit longer because Arnold's constantly rebuilding these TX files, but, you know, they didn't fix the UI, so you work with what you got. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a file, texture, and I am going to go and grab in my file here, I'm going to go get my normal map. So in my normal map, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to say, so Kortex. I'm just going to grab this 01 normal, and I'm going to say open. And then, so what I need to do here is replace this guy with a UDIM texture. So what I can do is I can turn on UDIM tiling. So right now this is turned off. So I can say UDIM Mari, and we can see as soon as I do this, it replaces this with what's called a token. Okay, so as soon as you see this token, you know you're in business. Now, because this is a normal map, right, I don't want any color correction done to this. So I'm going to set this to raw. So in my shader, I'm going to come down to, let's see, geometry. I'm going to middle mouse drag this file into my bump mapping, and we should get a bump 2D and a normal map. So I'm going to take this bump 2D and set it to tangent space normal. Okay, so let's see what we get out of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dock my hypershade behind my Arnold view. So I go Arnold view, hypershade. I'm going to go to my Arnold view, and I'm just going to press render and see what we get. And fantastic, there's my normal map. So right now, it looks a little reversed. It looks like things that are going out should be going in and vice versa. And this is why I do my normal map first. But a lot of times, really, with all your color and everything else going on, it's really hard to tell what's going on in here. So to flip your normal map, you need to flip your green channel. So I'm going to come over to hypershade, grab here. I'm going to go to Arnold. I'm going to say flip green channel. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to stop this. I'll say flip green, and I'm going to run this again. Now it looks correct. This should push in. That should be coming out. So go here. That should be coming out. That looks right now. So if I flip my green, I can also try and flip my red. Actually, flipping the red looks more correct. Yeah, looks right. Okay. So normal map done. Good stuff. So the next thing I do is work with my my specularity. So that's going to be my roughness. So when I'm working with my roughness, I usually take my, so I'm going to take my color, and I'm going to put that to like 50% gray, which is going to be 0.18. And I'll usually turn this off once I'm working with my specular. So I'm going to take my specular, turn it all the way up, and so I'm going to plug my roughness into my specular. So I'm going to do another file, texture. Once again, my roughness is data. It's not actual color, so I don't want it to color correct, so I'm going to say raw. I'm going to go get that roughness value. So 01 roughness, and open that, and Mari tiling, and I should be able to plug this guy into my roughness. So that is going to be specular roughness. I can do this raw. This should also be raw. I also like to turn on, so I'm getting this error down here, does not match color space. I'm just going to say ignore color space file, so I don't have to deal with that all the time. Okay, so my roughness is a single value. So there's two ways I can plug this single value into here. So right now, my red, my green, and my blue are all exactly the same value because it's a grayscale image. So I could just plug in my red into my roughness, but I kind of don't like to do that because it's a little messy. So there's two ways I can do this. I can come in here and I can say into my color balance, I can say alpha is luminance, right? So that'll just take my grayscale value and turn it into a luminance value. But I don't like doing this because it's way buried down here and sometimes it's not very apparent what you're doing. So what I like to do is I like to use an actual luminance node. Okay, so I'm going to take my color, I'm going to plug that into value, and you can see this says RGB, and it goes to grayscale. So that's my luminance. And I'm going to plug that into my overall roughness, so specular roughness here. Okay, so my specular color is going to be, we're going to leave that white, and we're going to say a weight of 1. So let's look at our Arnold view and let this run, see what happens. So yeah, there we go. So we're getting these variations in roughness just like we did in Social Painter. So this is a little bit shinier, that's a little bit rough. So this is coming along quite well. And now we can see that relief a lot better. So these are popping out. This is popping out like it should. So moving along quite well. Liking where this is going. Okay, so stop this. I'm going to say save, increment and save. So it's going to be rig 0102. Back to the hypershade. The next thing we need to plug in is, let's see, what was the next thing? Is material roughness, color, emission. Transmission. Okay, so we have in here we have transmission, and then we have we also have coat. So I think, how did I want to do this? We also have subsurface, which I'm not going to deal with. Let's see. Let's do. All right, so let's bring in my opacity, and I want to plug that into my transmission. But remember, our opacity is the opposite of our transmission, so we need to flip that value over. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to bring in file, texture. I want to grab my opacity here. Let's see. Where is it? Opacity. And turn on. So once again, this ignore and raw. Okay. Because this data, I'm not actually. So really, the only thing I need to be sRGB is my color coming in. Okay, so let's see. We'll do Mari here. And I want this to also be luminance. So I'm just going to Control D, my luminance. And then under effects, I can say invert. So I can flip this. Or I can do this as another node called reverse. So that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, I'm going to do a tab. I'm going to do a reverse. And we'll do our color into this input first. And then we'll output into our reverse there. So for this, I'm going to plug this into transmission. Transmission weight, which is here. Cool. So let's see what that looks like. So yeah, we're getting a bit of that in there. We're starting to see like some of this inside bits, some of these inside bits here. And just to be safe, the other thing that I want to check, I want to check that my brain is working. So I'm just going to, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to hide. I want to make sure, yeah, so my brain is nice and shiny, getting all that stuff coming in there. That's working well. So undo that. And let's look at, let's bring, actually, what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to bring back my color. Okay, so let's start playing with these values, see what we can get. So I have my specular here. I have my transmission. And let's see, my IOR is 1.5. That looks about right. So my coat adds an extra little sheen on top of this. So I'm going to just look at just my glass here. I can troubleshoot this. So I don't need my coat just yet. My IOR might be a little bit high. So if I set my IOR to 1, that's basically air. So basically that's what's the word I'm looking for? No, this isn't refracting at all, right? So we can kind of start to see it right through there. It's not exactly as see-through as I would like. So as I start to bring up my IOR, like that stuff will start to shift. So I'm going to leave this at 1 for now because I want to get my transparency working. Let's see. Scatter. That's not depth. So I may have to edit my opacity channel here. I might have to do a gamma or a color correct node to get it to look just exactly the way I want it to look. I think I've also frozen my Maya a little bit. Yeah, I think my Maya is in her death throes right now. Transmission, I got my color, my depth. Scatter is for foggy stuff. don't know why this is becoming gray. All right, let me kill Maya. These things happen. It's the perils of rendering and doing streaming at the same time. Let's go ahead and kill that. Let's pop mine back open. All right, should be, there we go. So I'm going to say file, make sure I'm in the right project. So set my project and open scene. I didn't lose too much work, I don't think. So I had, let's do date modified. There we go. Hopefully it saved my layout. It did not. Boo. Boo, Maya. No worries. So I'm going to do Arnold render view. Dock this at the bottom here. And my hypershade. And this is going to get docked right next to my render view. There we go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take a step back from my textures, and I'm actually going to assign this guy his own shader. So I'm going to make a new standard surface, just so I can dial in, so I can see what my values should be. So we're going to do shader, AI, where is it? AI standard surface. And I'm going to do assign material to viewport selection. So let's do, oh, I'm also going to go to rendering, and I want to render at test resolution. Oh yeah, I was at 10% of my test resolution here. Good. Just make sure. Yeah, cool. So let's render that. Okay. Oh, next thing I need to make sure I'm under my cam shape. There we go. Okay, so let's go grab this guy. Let's do two. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to take my transmission all the way up. And yeah, so that's looking pretty good. So I'll circle back to doing the textures on this part here. And then color should be that. Depth. Scatter. So it looks like every time I touch my depth, for whatever reason, it's freezing Maya, which is unfortunate. Unfortunate. Ah, so my specular roughness might be causing this. Wow, this is maddening. This is really maddening. So my specular roughness here, that's plugged in. Let's see. My specular roughness should be plugged in there. Overall. Maya is really fighting me today, guys. Really sorry about this. All right, let's try this one more time. Task manager. Maya not responding. In task. Let's try this one more time. Sometimes it's hard to do this and talk at the same time. Really makes you, when you're on this end, really makes you respect the YouTube guys, because they do this like every single day, and they've like, you know, not that I don't practice, but they rehearse this stuff over and over and over again. With this stream, I am very, very much doing this stuff live and working, you know, working through problems, because a lot of times you don't see this stuff happen. Like, it's just like, you're like, oh, this should be super easy. When you hit problems, you're like, oh, this guy, there must be something wrong with me, because everybody online says it's quick and easy. It's not quick and easy. It's very, very difficult. So, you know, be patient. All right, so set my project. Palindrome. Open scene. Text v2. Open. Don't save. Okay, there it is. Let's pop up my hypershade. Let's have a look and make sure that, yeah, there's my specular roughness. That's plugged in correctly. Yep. Okay, so let's take our transmission. Let me turn up my transmission. Well, I do transmission on everything. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Let's say right click, assign new material. I'm going to do AI standard surface. This guy I'm going to turn to this. Yeah. And then Arnold render view. And go. There we go. All right, so we're back to where we were. So I know not to touch depth, because that will break my render, or at least don't touch it while I'm dealing with this. So in my render settings, I think I'm gonna have to turn up my samples. Oh, my camera samples are at 50, and I'm running on my GPU. So that, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. I'm going to do a region render. And so let's debug this. So don't touch the depth. Don't touch the depth. So this is quite blurry. So I don't have any coat. So I'll put an extra coat. That just gives me more reflectivity. Let's bring down my specular roughness. Yeah, so that's what it is. My specular roughness that I have plugged into my original shader is fogging up, is basically overly fogging my it's overly fogging my glass. So I'm just going to keep my glass like this for now, and I will tune that later. We'll just have a separate material for our glass for now. So I'm actually going to turn that down quite low. And actually, I might use my coat for my specularity. So we can, let's say, diamond. Yeah, so you basically have two specular lobes with the AR standard. You have your specular and you have your coat, and they can work together to do, you know, some pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to do 1.5 on here, and I'm going to bring my roughness down pretty low. And we'll take, let's see, here's my coat. Transmission's all the way up. Don't want any scattering. Don't want any diffusion. Yeah, I'm just going to leave my specular off. I think... Yeah, so I can control... So my IOR still controls this. So I can control my refraction with my IOR, with my specularity. So let's put this back at 1.5. So we'll just leave this like this for now, and then we'll add this in maybe next stream. But as it is right now, this is looking pretty good. Okay. All right. Next part. So I'm gonna go ahead and dock these things again. So Hypershade's gonna go there, and my render view is gonna go there. My Hypershade is gonna go right behind it. Come on, Maya. There you go. All right. So this is just gonna be my glass shader here. So this is my main shader. This is my glass shader over here, which I'll troubleshoot later. Okay, so next thing that I'm going to plug in is going to be my, let's just go ahead and do emission, because I think that'll look cool if he's like all black and he just has like this emission. So I'm going to do the same thing. So tab, file, texture, grab that. And so we'll go and grab our emissions. Let's do, where is it? Name. Actually, let's go ahead and we'll do a metalness next. Metalness. Open that. Set that to raw. Ignore. Udim. Luminance and metalness goes in here. Now we won't be able to see our metalness unless we have some sort of color. So I'm going to bring my color back up, and I'm going to give this like a half saturated red, just so we can see something. Clear this out. Great. So there's our metal. Tinted highlight. No tinted highlight. No fuss. No muss. And this is starting to look good now as well, too. So we'll deal with our specular stuff here in a minute. Okay. So let's pause this. Go back to our hypershade. So that's our metalness. Is working out quite nicely. Okay. And let's see, we have metalness, we have our specular roughness. And I think the last thing, emission. Yeah, so let's do emission. File, texture. Let's go grab that emission color. So generally, it seems backwards, but I do base color last because I want to make sure everything else is working before I throw my base color on there. So here's my emissive. So my emissive is actual color, so I want to leave that as sRGB because we're actually using it for color. It's one of the few that I actually use for color. So Mari, and this is going to go into emissive color, so out color straight into emissive color. I'm going to save this. To my Arnold view. Let's check this out. So on my emissive, I need to go and I actually need to turn it on. So if I come way down here, my emissive, turn that back on. to 1. And let's go back to here. And there's my emission. Now, it doesn't look as bright as it did in Arnold, because not in Painter, because remember I turned this value up to like 10. So let's do that same thing. Let's do 10, and there we go. Boom. There's right back to where we were before with our emissive value. So that's fantastic. That works really well. This will look really cool. I don't know why my hands are coming out white. I'll have to figure that out here in a minute. So my hands don't have an emissive value on them, right? Almost everything else has an emissive value on it, but my hands don't. They have no glowing parts. So I didn't have an emissive. Texture set on that part. So no value. If I go to my file here for my emissive, this is my emissive, and come all the way down here to color balance. So my default color is basically, if it can't find anything, it's gonna make it. It's gonna spit out the color. So by default, it's like this 50% gray. I want it to be black. So I don't want any emissive if it doesn't find anything. I could have done that with my opacity as well. So that's one way to do it. If you don't want to have, if you're pinched on texture space, or if you don't want to deal with having all those files or files that are just 100% white, 100% black, that takes up compute cycles, that takes up space. So you can do it like this as well. So there's many ways to skin the same cat. Disgusting analogy, I know. Okay, so there's my emissive. That looks good. And so we will now, I think finally, we'll do our base color. So file, texture, leave it at sRGB, go get our base color. I'm gonna leave that at sRGB and UDIMs for Mari. And then we'll say out color into base color. And we get that amazing glowing bit there. And there's our base color. Great. This is looking fantastic. I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna let this chew for a little bit. That brain is looking amazing. Really, really good stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna let this stop. So I'll just go over this to make sure. So everything looks like it's pretty well aligned. Looking pretty good overall. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on this. Take the last little bit and work on why my glass is not working out. So let's come over here. Let's look at our glass, and I want to view just the glass here. Say render. Okay. So right now I'm using my coat. If I take my IRR down to 1 and I take my IRR down to 1 on my specular, this should just go straight through. So because basically at this point this is air. So if I do 1.5, that's basically glass. If I take my roughness down to 0 on both of these, this is perfect glass in both parts. So what I can do is I can start to bring my roughness up on my coat. See what that does. My coat roughness doesn't seem to be doing anything. My specular roughness, actually let me save this before I break something. Okay, so it looks like specular roughness is controlling the overall roughness of my glass here. Okay, and let's see. So the higher my IOR, the more this is getting bent inside of here, like so. So let's leave that at 1.5 because that's generally glass. You also have these presets here. So cornea, diamond, ethanol. Let's do flint glass. It's like 1.6, so it's just above 1.5. So the more roughness I get, the more frosted this is going to get. So if I do 0, and let's bring my roughness up for my coat. Yeah, that's actually, I like this about here. Sometimes you just gotta fiddle until you get what you like. Yeah, I like. This is feeling pretty good. I also think now looking at this, I think the problem was if I look at my roughness image, I think I made a mistake. And when I painted I didn't paint the inside. So let's go look at that roughness image. So that's in CG Spectrum, Projects, Stream, Palindrome Bot, Maya Projects, and Source Images. Let's look at this roughness. So that was 24. So that's my TX file. 24, where's my roughness? 24 roughness PNG. Ah, yeah, so look how bright this is. So I think this is the inside of my glass, and this is the outside of my glass. This is very, very, very bright. Right, so this is very rough on the inside. So I think that might have been, I could have, maybe I painted this wrong, or, you know, something like that. But this is really, really, really rough on the inside. So what I can do, if I still want this variation, so I can just build this guy on his own. So what I can do is I can I can color correct this within Maya. Like I don't have to go all the way back to Substance. I could, but for this, I don't really need to. And this is actually good. Like I can bring this, I need to bring this overall just way down. Like this is like really, really, really dark. Or I need this to be very, very dark. So, because if I bring my, over here, if we look at this, if I start to take, let's look at that was about like, I would say that was about 0.5, right? It was very bright. So if I take my roughness way up to 0.5, that's why I was getting that frosted kind of look. I want the average of this to be about, you know, here. Like maybe 0.2. Okay. So, one way to do this, so this roughness, So let's leave our specular roughness at 0. And I actually like the coat roughness. Because like this is as rough as my coat can get overall. Or actually, no, that's not my color. That's my roughness. Like this is as rough as my coat can get. And I can also try to plug in my my opacity into this to get like little flecks. And I can probably also use so my transmission weight here. So I can use to put some dirt on. Okay. So if my transmission weight is anything but 0, I'm getting a little bit of this color. So what I can do is, just for the sake of this, I'll just put a checkerboard on this. So now I have this checkerboard, right? So I have some transmission, some not transmission. So we can get rid of that as well. I don't really need that. So what I'll do is I'll just have a separate glass shader. So this is my main shader here. So I'm going to call this Kortex. Main SG. Make sure I stop this. And then I'll call this guy Kortex Glass SG. Okay, cool. So let's build out this glass then. Let's go back to here, and so let's go ahead and let's plug in that roughness to our coat roughness. So I'm just going to do a regular file at this point, texture, and I'm going to go get that roughness 24. Roughness PNG, say open. Once again, ignore and raw because I don't want to color correct this at all. Get a luminance node. And I'm going to go ahead and plug that into coat roughness. See what we get over here. Also need to take my transmission. Turn that all the way up. So we're getting a little bit of variation in there. So let's go ahead and let's stop this. And we'll go and we'll plug that. Also, let's just go ahead and plug this into our specular roughness as well. So roughness, specular roughness. So this should kind of blow everything out. Specular roughness. Yeah, so that's making everything really, really, really blown out. So what I can do is I can color correct this within Maya, which is amazing. So I'm just going to stop this. So what I can do is in my hypershade here, because it's a black and white value, if I can start to multiply this by like 0.5 or 0.2 or 0.1, and it will gradually make that less and less rough. So I can do that with a, I'm going to say a multiply. I wonder if there's an AI multiply. Yeah, AI multiply. So here we have input 1, red. So we'll just take this output and plug that into our specular roughness. And so I'm going to take this and just say half. If I run this again, I should get half of my overall roughness. So I want this to be really, really not super rough in my specular. I do want some frosting happening overall. So it's not a perfect reflection. Cool. So now I can start. Now that I have this working, I can start to build out the rest of this this glass. Let's collapse this. Okay, so I can come in here. I can do another file. I can do my use that my normal map. So I can do the same thing here. So I can maybe no, I'll just do it. Just do it regular. So I'll do file, texture, and this is supposed to be raw because it's normal map. Ignore. We'll get 24 normal. For normal, and that will get plugged into, let's see, geometry, bump mapping. It makes me a bump 2D, and I want to make sure that's tangent space. Let's look at what this does. So that's really, really rough. So what I can do is I can start to bring this down. Raw, 24 normal. And so let's go to our bump map, and remember we said to flip our R channel. That is really strong. .01 maybe. I think 0.01 is gonna do the trick. Yeah, 0.01. I don't want it to perturb too much overall, because I still want to be able to see the brain inside. Cool. All right. Next, with this, let's look at our translucency. Now, I actually want to go and look at, so that's going to be my opacity. So I'm going to grab, guess it, another file. I'm going to go grab 24 opacity. Once again, raw, ignore. Let's see, 24 opacity. So once again, like if we look at this, like the inside of this is really, really opaque. So for this, I may actually have to go back to Substance Painter and fix that map. So at this point, for now, I think I'll just leave this as it is. So this is my glass shader. What else can we do to this? Yeah. So I'm going to save this file, save CNS. Let's come back to Arnold view. Let's clear this, and let's look at the whole thing. Just do render. So looking at this now, I think I should kind of perturb this up a little bit. So let's see. Let's go back to hypershade. Now at this point, I kind of want to see both at the same time, so I'm going to pull my hypershade off. So let's go back and let's do 0.02. 0.01. Yeah, it just makes normal just way too strong. 0.02 is pretty good. And then on our multiply, let's bring a little bit of that roughness back in. Overall, kind of get those smudges. And so I might add just a teeny bit of scattering in here to give this a little bit of tint. So I'm going to give this a little bit of an orange. Start to bring. Now, I remember when I was messing with my depth, it was breaking things, so I'm going to stop and say, let's bring my depth up. Let's see what that gives me. Yeah, every time I touch my depth... Oh, wait, I haven't told this to go. Yeah, so maybe the depth is not working with the with my GPU render. Yeah, because that's every time I touch this, every time I turn this on, it's giving me it's crashing Maya. So maybe I can't use depth with this version or whatever my so this is a difficult thing about rendering is this could be Maya, it could be my graphics card, it could be my drivers. It's a very, very complicated process. So that is completely dead. So that's why I keep saving. Save early, save often. So let's go kill this one more time. Yeah, Maya not responding every time I use the depth there. So fantastic. All right, one more time. Come on, Maya. Be a Maya. There you go. File. Recent projects. Recent projects. Palindrome. Open scene. Date modified. 02. There we are. So, why would we go through all this trouble when I can just do this in Substance Painter? Because now I can pose and animate this guy and get these delicious renders. So, I'm gonna close this down. I'm gonna go and let's turn on textures. It's not gonna work. Let's turn on default textures. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to turn on my rig. Okay. So I'm going to hide, say, show, none, show, nervous curves, show polygons, show lights. So there are my 3 lights. So let's go ahead and pose this guy up and kind of start to set him up for render. So let's do that. So make it so he can't select him anymore. So let's put him in a nice little pose. Let's see here. Let's grab. Let's find posing super fun. Lean him forward a little bit. Let's take and bring. Let's go ahead and flare those feet back out a bit. And this is where studying reference, even when you're doing something as kind of cartoony as this, like if you want to give him a very specific attitude, like you can find other characters that have that attitude. So I'm going to do a little bit of that, what you call the contrapposto, that going that way, that going that way. Let's bring one arm. Let's bring, so this leg is forward. So I'm going to bring that leg, that arm back. This. Actually, I think what I want to do is I want to test these feet a little bit. Nice wide stance here. What is BC in? What is BC in? So this leg is back. I'm gonna take this arm and move it back like that, and let's give this some like we put all that work into getting these guys working. So let's pull this out. And this is the part I find really fun is posing, because you did all this work and now it's kind of starting to pay off. So let's bring this arm forward. And I have no idea what I'm having this guy do. I'm just kind of posing him up to see how it looks when he is all nice and posed. And you don't even like when you're if you're modeling, you don't even have to do a pose that's like this severe. Just adding a little bit of a pose to your character can go a really, really long way. It's kind of like that thing that can separate your work from the next guy's work. If you just have a little bit of character in so it's kind of looking like Napoleon right now with like that look up. Yeah, so let's go over to, I think I want to tilt him a little bit towards my camera. So I'm going to look at my shot cam. A little bit towards the camera, a little bit like that. So let's go into our Arnold render view. And let's fire off a render and see what it looks like. Wow. Oh yeah, that is amazing. I'm like so much more kind of just attitude as he's posed in camera. And so this is just like default default lighting. So I can start to now that I have my overall lighting, just like my overall pose, my overall lighting, I can start to give this like a little bit of a little bit of atmosphere or attitude or whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna go back. I kind of want to give him. I want to give this foot a little bit more of an athletic pose. And maybe I want maybe he's. I want him. I think I want both of his arms forward. Actually, I think I'm going to stretch this one way out like that. Maybe pull this down. Because he's got these we built these little extendo arms, so might as well, make use of them. Bring his neck forward just a bit. So these guys are crossing a little bit too much. Let's bring this guy back a bit. I know I said he's not supposed to be a fighter, but he's ended up looking like he's about to put up your dukes type thing. Yeah, cool. All right, cool. I'm liking this. I'm liking where this is at. So let's go ahead and let me see. Let me see. What else can we do this? So I'm losing a little bit of him over here. Like I have this rim light, but I'm losing a little bit of this down here. So I'm gonna make like a little kicker light down here, and I'm also going to start tinting my lights as well. Render view go. Let's see. I'm gonna do file, save scene as, and I'm gonna save this as pose. I seem to have lost my Arnold render view. Let's see here. Where did you go? There we go. It's on my other screen. Back to my other Maya here. Yeah, I'm looking at maybe I think my camera needs to be just a bit lower. So I'm going to dock this down here again. And let's go to my shot cam. Select it. Let's unlock this stuff. I'm going to tilt him down just a bit. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's working well. So he's on this pretty dark background. So I would like to get a little bit of color coming into here, and I would like to shift my rim light around here, because rim light's hitting like right there. So let's try to do that. Let's come up into my perspective view. And let's take let's bring my key light a little bit around to the front. Let's take fill. I think I'm going to bring that down. Maybe rotate this up a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit more illumination here. I need to rotate this guy in a little bit as well. I want to give this guy a little bit of shape as well. I think I'm gonna make this a little bit thinner, a little wider. And then my rim light. Yeah, so I want this separation here. That's the separation I'm wanting. And I want my rim light to be pretty crisp, so I'm gonna shrink him down just a bit. Pretty sharp. The smaller my light source, the sharper my fall off and my shadows are gonna get. So I'm losing a little bit of his arm here. I think I'm gonna lift that shoulder a bit. And this, for me, like, this is like the fun part, right? Like done all this work, and now you get to pose, you get to like play around, like you change your lighting. It's great. Let me stop that. Yeah, like that. So I'm getting like this little pool of light. We can see both of these things. We can see this thing. His head's turned. Maybe I can cock his head down just a little bit. Yeah, that gives him just a little bit more attitude. Make sure he's not clipping into his arm here. He's not. That's nice. I like that. Shift this a little bit over. So one thing that I like to do is I'll switch over to my alpha channel and see he's a little cluttered in here. Maybe I can bring that claw out here or claw down here so you can see it. But he's still got a pretty striking silhouette. And this is all from that original, that original drawing that was done by the guys at Creature Box. Like, this is just like a really, really good design. It's just got this striking. It's just got a really striking silhouette. Like no matter which way you look at him, like you would know, but it's because of the head shape and because of his claws, like you know, like this is the character that you're looking at. Okay, so let's take our key light and let's give it some warmth. So I'm gonna do use color temperature. And so cool lights are orange. So if I bring this down, it's going to make them really orange. Actually, that's really cool. Don't want to go that far. My fill, let's say use color temperature. We're going to make this one quite cool. Maybe I went a little bit too far on that key light. And my rim, I'm going to make very, very blue. I can reframe him a little bit, kind of like not filling the frame how I would like him to. Stop. Let's go back to our shot cam. And for my shot cam, I'm going to go grab that shot cam. I want to increase my overscan so I can actually see. So my post, I always forget where it is. Display options, overscan, here we go. So that gives me a better idea of how he's actually framed overall. Remember, I kind of want that margin on the outside. I don't want him really, really cramped because this is going to feel claustrophobic. So what I can also do is I can turn on my title safe. So I want to make sure he fits inside that little square. There. So I always think of my title safe as my margins. So this is pretty noisy up in the glass, but everything else is looking really, really good. Glass just always takes forever to come through, and I'm using my GPU, so it's a bit faster. So the GPU just basically let it sit. So let's stop this. Actually, stop this here. And let's switch over to my CPU and see what that looks like. Now, this is going to be magnitudes slower, but I'll get more quality. That's generally the... So I got to bring my camera AA samples way down, because 50 is just like bonkers. So let's do 3. I don't have any subsurface, and I don't have any volume. The same, but you're just seeing the progressive render now. You can see those buckets firing off. So this will get progressively cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as time goes on. So I'm going to call this guy done. So I'm going to do a few shots of this. I think maybe one last thing I'll do is I'll put a little backdrop behind him. So we have kind of that infinite backdrop. So I'll go ahead and make one of those real quick. Perspective. I'm gonna minimize this. let's go ahead and say create polygon primitives plane. I'm gonna make this thing really, really big. So say 100 by 100. Or no, that's only 1 meter. 1,000 by 1,000. Let's put this up to 100. Maybe 2,000. Good. And I'm gonna put a bend modifier on this guy. So I'm gonna say, let's see, that's my Z. I'm gonna say deform, nonlinear, bend, show deformers. So I'll take this guy, rotate it, and say curvature. So always in the wrong direction, always curves in the wrong direction. So I'm going to say rotate that. So 90. My low bound goes to 0. It's curvature here. And if I want that curve to be tighter, I can just scale this in. Okay, so I'm going to group all this and just position it right behind him. Scoot it back a little bit. And maybe scale it up a bit. I'm going to go back to my shot cam. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, I need to give this guy a material. So assign new material. And that's going to be another AI standard surface. And I think I'm going to leave this as it is. I'll bring my, make this like 50% gray. Let's do 0.18. And I don't really want much specular on this. I want it to be mostly diffuse. So let's go back and look at our Arnold render view. See what we get now. I have to refresh. Update full scene. A little bit of a background, a light from my background, and my rim light is hitting the bottom here, which is actually making a pretty nice shadow. But if I didn't want that, I could take my rim light and I can start to decrease my my spread. So my spread is at 1, so I can start to pull this in. Until that starts to focus in on my guy here. I could also use barn doors if I wanted to. So like that, and then what I'll do is I'll just make a big kind of like light that'll illuminate this back part. So let's stop that, and let's go back, drop that down, and let's go back to our perspective view. And I'll just make another big area light that's going to hit back here. So Arnold, lights, area light. Now, the cool thing about this is, or I think it's cool, is I only have 4 lights in here. Like, I see so many students that, like, they have, 10, 12, 13 lights. And if you place your lights, like in an intelligent manner, you don't really need that many to get your point across. So this is going to be a big kind of long skylight that's going to illuminate that back part. So it's going to be really big, so I have nice soft illumination. Let's put that exposure to like maybe 10. Yeah, there we go. And we're getting a little bit of that nice kind of like car light. So that's pretty much it. I'm really happy with this guy. I think I'm gonna put him down, and next week we're gonna start on a new project. So I'm gonna do some beauty renders, and check out, so you can find me on Instagram. Once again, my name is Bryan Bentley. This is the Wednesday modeling stream. This is the completion of an entire character, from ZBrush to Maya to Substance Painter, back to ZBrush. We've done modeling, we've done rigging, we've done lighting, we've done look dev, we've done posing. It's been a lot. So I'm happy with this. Like, I'm gonna put this down. I'm gonna call this done. And next week, stay tuned. We're gonna start a new project. I may pick up one of my really old projects and start to do some resurrection, what I call grabbing a zombie project and bringing that back to life. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me on a Wednesday. Be good, wash your hands, drink water, and eat vegetables. Thank you so much. I will catch you on the flip side. Take it easy. Peace.